12.
12 ounces. Oh, it's a claw. There are no laws.
It's not even a real claw. It's an off-brand claw. It's Kirtland claw.
Oh, I've heard they're good.
They're actually, yeah, they are. And they were like half of White Claws.
It's a wit claw.
Yeah, it is El Claw de Blanco.
Okay, good.
I was gonna say beige claw.
Yep.
They're funny.
We're almost there.
Oh, come on.
I gotta get to the theme song.
You already had 2 chances even.
About to put Mental on the theme song because I think it was pretty good.
I'm gonna go back to work. I mean,
Don't get excited. Welcome to Everyone Racers, a show designed for the world of low dollar racing and oddball car culture. It doesn't matter what kind of lucky dog, champ, dew claw, white claw you got. We love you, no matter what you're drinking. SCCA, NASA, we don't discriminate. As long as you drive it hard and build it yourself. Join us each week for tech discussion, tips, tricks, news and notes in the world of amateur endurance racing, and whether it's on the spot, hella sweet, or we're lucky enough and Chrissy gives us just a tip, we're sure you'll giggle a little and learn even less. Everyone report to the paddock.
This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Mental, and we are Everyone Racers. Thanks for coming back and listening to a Buzz Aldrin episode of our podcast. It is episode 174, and it is being recorded on January 20th. Nothing really big happened today, so I dug this up. January 20th, Eugene Buzz Aldrin Jr. was born on this day in 1930 in Montclair, New Jersey.
Yep.
He would go on to graduate third in his class at West Point. He flew 66 combat missions in Korea, shot down 2 MiGs, earned a PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He also did 3 spacewalks, was the mission commander for Apollo 11, and the second human being to ever walk on the moon. But we all know and love Buzz because in 2002, the then 72-year-old Buzz Aldrin punched 6 foot, 250-pound, 37-year-old lunar denier named Bart Siebel straight to the ground. One punch laid him out. And of course, that video is in our show notes. If you're not currently on the moon or driving a car, don't forget your E1R bingo card. What you working on? I know you guys are all busy this weekend, but we'll start with Jeff.
I love that video. It's been years since I've seen it. I'm going to click on it right after we're done recording. As Mental suggested, we had a work weekend. Woo-woo. We got all joined at the Chris and Chrissy palatial estate. Tried not to freeze our tookies off in the very warm garage, actually. It was very pleasant. And
having a heater in the garage with an insulated garage makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Totally jealous.
Actually, Jeff, I got that heater from you when your wife brought the wrong one. Remember that? Worked out great.
Yep, she bought the what is it? It's gas instead of propane. Natural gas, and we had propane in the house. So yeah, it was a Harbor Freight job. Anyway, what did we do on the Z? Well, we're going to talk about swap stuff later in the episode. We actually did I did a lot of non-swappy stuff. We did suspension. We replaced the entire suspension. We did brake lines, not braided brake lines, just good old rubber ones. I worked on the cool shirt cooler. I did cut a hole in the hood. That's kind of swappy, I guess. And it was only like 80% Cheatonium what I did, and I don't care. That's what I did.
Yeah. Yep. It's amazing the things we do to fit a $150 engine into a $900 car.
Oh, and you say it like that, it's miserable.
Yes.
You guys can check this out on our social media, but before you guys had the hood on there, I was thinking it was just going to be this ridiculous NHRA Pro Stock hood scoop. It actually looks really good. I think it's going to look fantastic.
It is.
I don't know about fantastic.
It will not look fantastic when it's done. I assure you.
It's not like this view blocking hood. It is. I think it's just be subtle. It'll be nice. I mean, everyone will know, but
yeah, it won't block our view as much as I was worried. So that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys did a great job of tabbing it out and kind of marking it and keeping it nice and tight. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, you didn't see
just from the view that you saw.
Yeah, the pictures aren't very good if that's what you think, because it's totally. Oh, it's Jeff just got to here.
Really glad.
Yeah.
It's not as tight to the valve cover as I expected it.
Nope.
Or intake manifold.
Intake manifold, yeah.
Yep. Instead of the cut, check, cut more, check, repeat 8 times, it was cut. Oh,
Hey, that'll work.
That's fine.
That hole's plenty big.
I got to take that one little corner off there, but I guess that's it. So anyway,
Efficient.
yeah.
This one might show it a little better. You can see there's
So you can fit your hand in between the
there's a decent amount of room there. But that's all right. It'll all cover with whatever we decide to cover it with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't remember doing anything other than those things, but I'm sure because there was lots of little things that we were doing. So it was like quick little job.
You did the starter and the clutch slave.
Oh, the clutch slave. I forgot about the clutch slave.
Oh, you changed the diff oil?
Changed the diff oil.
And we we flushed all the brake fluid and got nice clean tool and everything. And
we did a lot of brake bleeding. Not like an inordinate amount, but we did like we bought this piece of shit for $800 from rednecks who probably never took care of their brake fluid, and we were going to race on this brake fluid. So we were going to flush it and flush it and flush it and flush it. And then, oh shit, it got empty. Fuck.
It's watching the reservoir. I don't know.
Put more in. Let's do it again.
Yep. But hey, it wasn't too bad to bleed.
No, it wasn't bad at all.
All right. So
Chris,
yes.
what'd you do?
I've been working on the Z all the time, like I usually do, but I had 3 solid days of working out with you guys. So I continue to fiddle with wiring. That is a almost nonstop job. Got gauges wired more, got an OBD2 port in, got the kill switch actually finally wired properly, including the kill switch will kill all of the engine things. So every sensor, every injector, every coil all get killed by the kill switch now, which is good. Worked on the cool box switch, USB ports with a volt gauge, mounted the gas pedal. So that was some good time in the Lotus position under the car, including making a throttle stop so that our over exuberant drivers who are so excited to have all of the power don't bend the firewall or anything or break off our lovely welds on our
there's like 19 welds on the pedal, so let's not
and how's
break
the bolt that you broke off then had to drill out or pull out?
Yep.
Yeah,
bolt broke. I had to pull that one out. That was fun, especially when you're lying in the Lotus position under the dash. Tonight I even installed the power steering pump. I got the new pulley on it, got that actually bolted up in the car, got the drive belt on it, so all the accessory belts are all done. Found I ordered the wrong sandwich plate. Oh, we had an oil cooler in this weekend too.
Oh, yeah.
From scratch. We got an oil cooler in when Eric K came up for a day to help us out. And tonight I've pulled about 20 wires out of the main chassis harness between the,
remember when you were in the trunk and you were like, what is all this?
What is all this crap in the trunk?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now Chris was like, oh crap, it's there. I'm going to take it apart.
Because there's so much junk in the trunk before, I couldn't tell. Now that you got the junk out, I could see.
Yeah, there is.
There, right? So, yeah.
I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just saying some people appreciate.
Jeff's been watching a lot of TikTok.
I'm volunteering.
Okay. Yeah. So most of those wires are out. I've gotten them all traced and cut out up to about the front of the cage, and now I've got to pull them out of the coming up toward the fuse box a little bit more, so we don't have any loose hot wires in the thing, and then loom it all back up. But things like the windshield washer, which is in the rear of this car for both front and rear, because that's a great spot. The amplifier for the power antenna in the back, along with all the antenna power wires, the rear speaker wires, the dome light, the courtesy switches and extra lights. Yeah, gone.
Nice. Add lightness.
It's tedious.
Mr. Chapman.
It's not lightness. It's reduced complexity. Like fewer things there to be in the way or to get smashed or break. Or
you also label made things all the place.
Everything that plugs in the engine has a label on it now, and labels on the gauge, labels on the switch panel that are not as funny as Hamza's. But
I feel like the impetus of this started at Road Atlanta in the snow in the Honda a few years ago.
Well, that was just worn out wires in the distributor that cracked.
Right, but you guys tracing them literally were with the fold out 2-page wiring diagram.
Our problem wasn't what wires do what, though. It was which
What's
wires
broken.
are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is disconnected?
So, but for the obvious stuff, like toward the back of the car, like it's there. It's just a matter of delooming the entire harness, taking all this sticky tape off of everything that's been there since 1992, pulling the wires out one by one, and now I have to reloom the whole harness and get it back so it's cleaned up and out of the way. But it's coming along.
Nice.
And also provided general adult supervision for whatever else was going on.
Whatever. Chris, I need you here. Chris, come over here. What are you doing? Why are you sitting? What are you doing? Okay. Anyway,
Something like that.
Right. So I have to, after just these two talking, and I'll give a couple of things that I was working on. I know you're going to keep listening to the main topic of our show, but I feel like you should be listening to all of these things. That was just a weekend's worth. So keep this noted, right? Okay. Keep it noted.
One little tiny weekend
And
in
we're-
a 2+ year job
With
to get this
5
car on the
people
track.
working on it at some point.
And this time next year, when we were talking about the race woes of what happened on a race weekend and what broke and what didn't get connected.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, I was focused on heater hoses. While a fairly simple job only had enough heater hose to not mess it up. And what?
Why you put a heater in your heater hoses?
Because
In
I
your
would
race
like,
car.
because when it's cold out, I want to turn the heat on.
Yeah.
Duh.
Because we've all driven cars without heaters and we swore never again. And
Defroster.
that's why
Defroster.
defroster, and every experienced endurance racer also leaves their wipers.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Even left the rear one on.
I
this car.
suggested we pull the rear off, and I was told no.
No. Because the trunk
not-
lid's not heavy enough. Come on.
Not until it's proven that we don't need it. Like if we're racing in the rain and we feel we are not using it and don't need it, then we can pull it. But
All right.
That a little thing is not going to be enough for that trunk lid, and on the wing, it's pretty heavy. Anyway,
that won't be why we don't win.
right.
True.
That's what I'm getting at here. Okay, so I deal with the heater hoses. I had a certain amount. I measured it 6 times. I cut once, and it was too short. So I had to add more hose clamps. So that just ended up being a longer project. I mean, it's fine though, I think. And it's kind of in a nice angle, is what we all agreed. And then the other day, I got all fiberglassy, because that's always fun, by doing the heat wrap on all of the exhaust manifolds and exhaust piping. That was terrible. Basically, I was like, don't touch me. I went through 25 gloves, even though gloves are at a premium right now, just to try to save. What?
I forgot to order gloves.
Put it on the list.
I'm gonna.
You drive by Harbor Freight like every day.
They don't have gloves.
No, remember we went? They didn't have any.
They had them. They were just
they were like
$15 a box instead of
something
$5
stupid. So yes, I used many gloves to try to keep the fiberglass off of I still ended up with on my arms, and I said don't. And I left my clothes in a pile till today to not touch. Don't touch them. They are full of fiberglass. And we had tacos. So there.
I missed the tacos because I had to go home.
Mm-hmm. They were good.
Mental, what did you do with your weekend?
So I've been doing a little bit more garage work. I got 2 more of my workbenches pulled out, got them stained, got them polyurethane, stained some of the backing behind there. Some more additional lighting that I'm putting in the garage. Some of the paint.
Never have too much.
No, you never can. And the one that I had hanging that I had bought from Lowe's some time ago, the LED, just died, which is disappointing. So I'm now adding 3 of a better kind.
Go on Amazon and look up Barrina, Barrina.
Oh, what is that?
LED lights. It's what I have in the basement.
Oh.
You can do surgery down there, and they're cheap, and they're a GRM favorite, people. But look those up. It's like $30 for 6 of them, and they are great.
Yeah, excellent. And I did some pool paint preparation while we're waiting for the temperatures to get up a little bit warmer around here before we paint our pool. So something I didn't put in the notes that I did want to bring up. So I got home yesterday and I had a package waiting on me. It was great. The person who had sent the package paid $14 for express 2-day shipping. The postmark on this package was December 24th. But the good news is, for dinner last night, I had Chrissy's mom's cookies.
You did not eat them. That's terrible.
Yeah, we're totally fine.
No.
We're totally fine.
Oh, sure.
They're in a sealed Tupperware container. Yeah, it was great.
I won't
26 days later.
Drunk you were. They weren't good. Some of them got hard 4 days later.
I was stone cold. I got home from work. I'm like, what the?
You must be so desperate.
I got all excited. Yeah, no, it's again like the snickerdoodles are still soft.
Okay.
If they're wrapped well, they could do pretty well. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and no one knows what the shelf life of Chrissy's mom's cookies are because they don't last.
They don't last.
That's true. They don't usually a month later.
I don't know what the shelf life is, but the roof of a Lemons car and a Lemons paddock life is about a half an hour.
Yeah, for a whole container. Yes, correct.
Yeah. That's once the word gets out. Chrissy's mom's cookies. Yeah. All right. Cool. So that's what I've been working on.
I was just going to tell my mom, but I think she's just going to be super pissed. I don't know.
Again, I imagine the goal is less about the cookies. It brought a smile to my face.
We're just glad you got them.
So yes, I was quite happy to see them, but less about cookies. And since this is not everyone cookies, we should probably talk about what's going on in the world of racing, which means it's time for
news and notes.
After 5 years of red tape, the NHTSA has completed a regulation permitting low-volume motor vehicle manufacturers to begin selling replica cars that resemble vehicles produced at least 25 years ago. Well, you say, what kit cars have been sold here for decades? Yeah, this doesn't seem like news, but the key differentiator here is a newer rule allows production and sale of complete, fully assembled turnkey replicas. So the replica car law and implementing regulations allow a low-volume manufacturer to construct up to 325 such replica cars a year. Who knows how they decided that was the right number, but whatever. Anyway, subject to federal regulatory oversight, these cars have to resemble production vehicles manufactured at least 25 years ago. So someone could make a 1990 Miata. Like, there you go. Anyway.
I don't think so.
Recognizes the unique challenges faced by companies to produce a small number of custom cars. The vehicles are required to meet current model year emissions standards. And so in 2019, the EPA issued guidelines for installing engine packages from other EPA certified vehicles, and the California Air Resources Board issued a regulation for producing compliant engine packages. So things like the GM sells the E1R package of the LS motor that is a complete ready to drop in with emissions controls, computer, wiring harness, but just like plug this into the cigarette lighter and it'll run. So things like that. Yeah, it's taken a long time, but SEMA actually sued the NHTSA in October 19 to require the agency to issue regulations allowing this law to take into effect from 2015. So
yeah, we've been following this story on this show since SEMA, since you guys came out for SEMA. So.
Because they passed the law. How many years ago? 15 years ago? 10 years ago? 5 plus. And then 2015. I'm sorry. I thought it was 15. And then they just said, well, we're just not going to write the rules.
Yeah.
They're stuck in regulatory hell. Yeah. Anyway,
no, we shouldn't be rules. That is a government tactic when you don't want to.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, you shouldn't be surprised. Yeah. The government's the least person to make any changes of what's going on in the world. Like, it's just a general statement.
Yeah.
So now you can buy your replica Cobra ready to drive, or your Lotus 7 kit ready to drive,
or
also 32 Ford Roadster, or whatever else. So this is great for like Factory 5. They can just actually make these things ready to go.
Well, yeah. So I was going to say it's the companies like Burton who's been making the Stalker kit for years, and like
Brunton. Burton is
Brunton. Sorry, Brunton. They can now finish the car and sell it to those people who want to buy a complete car.
It's also DeLorean, because DMC has been a fully functional company in Texas for years.
On that note,
yeah, they've been.
Let me tell you about that. So, hey, we think you drifto hella flush folks are right, but when it comes to driving hard, you might be out of a job. So recently, Toyota's Research Institute partnered with Stanford University to create driving technology that helps prevent accidents. Hey, this sounds great, right? Part of this technology is advanced maneuvering of a vehicle without human intervention. Well, gearheads are gearheads. So the team realized that a few tweaks of that software make it pretty easy to get a Supra drifting indefinitely under the control of a computer program. This isn't the first time. Last year, the Stanford crew built an autonomous drifting DeLorean.
look out, Johann Schwartz. The computers are coming to take your
they're coming to take our jobs.
They're gonna take
did.
your whatever that. What was it? It was
Drifto title.
Drifto title, the longest drift ever. All right.
In less happy news, Jerry Wingert passed away last week at the age of 76, recognizing that probably only Jeff and I are old enough to remember Jerry Wingert's fabled Vector W2. This was designed in 71, built in 78, early 70s supercar that was going to outdo the best of Europe. It was designed and marketed by Jerry Wingert, ultimately not to be. Mostly it was vaporware. He built 2 of them, would repaint them, update them, and they rotated through every magazine cover from my earliest memories of reading well up into the 90s. So they were on the cover of every glossy mag back in the day. They did almost make 20 of them powered by Lamborghini versions. The original one was a 350 Chevy through a Oldsmobile Tornado transaxle. Lamborghini powered them when the company and Lamborghini were also bought out by the Indonesian venture capital firm Megatech, because it was the 80s and they were based in Florida. Then the whole Ponzi scheme all fell apart. Jeff, you had something in here about one of the guys who did this was actually pardoned today with 143 pardons.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there.
All right. So anyway, the whole Ponzi scheme fell apart, and I think there's a handful of the W8s running around. But when he passed, of course, Jerry Wingert was working on another car that was going to revive the Vector name and be the fastest thing in the world.
I remember this.
I threw a picture of my co-host. Yeah.
But I was always highly disappointed that the 3-speed automatic in it. Like I would say, that's so cool. And then I'd say 3-speed automatic.
Yes.
What? Was that in the W2? Because I don't remember the W2.
Yes.
I remember the W8.
The W2 was a twin turbo, but it was a big block Chevy motor backed up with an Oldsmobile Tornado, which is why he could only get the 3-speed. And the odd thing is the shifter was on the left side of the driver's mounted in the gull wing door.
So
kind of a thing. So
here's why I remember the W8. I mean, obviously it was in like the Car and Driver and stuff like that, because they made a bunch of them. They made like 220 of them, and
no, they made 19.
19. Oh, it was 20. I think. It was
okay, 20. But that was the W8 was the Lamborghini powered one.
Yeah, so that was the one that was in the Wesley Snipes, Sean Connery Rising Sun movie. Chrissy, we're talking about a movie that you should check out.
No, you shouldn't. The movie is gone.
It was not good. It was a much better book by Michael Crichton. So Mental suggested it. This is actually a different story. Anthony Lewandowski has been pardoned by the now former president, Donald Trump. And you're like, well, Jeff, this isn't everybody politics. Why do you care? Well, we cared because this guy was the guy who created the autonomous tractor trailer company. The judge who sentenced him said it was the biggest trade secret crime he had ever seen. Lewandowski pleaded guilty to stealing trade secrets from Waymo, which was a Google company. Which was his own company, but is now an Uber company. Never mind. So he basically downloaded all of his designs that he made for Waymo, took them, started his new company that was called Otto, and then he sold the business to Uber because Uber wants self-driving cars. This is all self-driving car technology. And Google, who is Waymo's parent company, said, hey, wait a minute. That's all that stuff you made for us before. So now the two companies are suing each other. They've all settled, but he is still in the clink, or was about to go to the clink for 24 months. The lawsuits are still flying, but now he gets to stay on the streets.
But Tiger Joe Exotic is still in jail.
It's
all because that bitch Carol Baskin.
Yeah, Lewandowski Lewandowski still has to figure out how to get out of the $178 million that they say.
It's like not much money.
I think that's the amount of money that he sold the company for. So that's what they're saying, that's the profit he made. So yeah, self-driving trucks and Uber self-driving program, totally stolen.
Yep.
All right. Upcoming races. Do we got any? No.
No.
Recent results.
Yeah, we have recent results.
Good.
Yay. All right. This weekend was Lucky Dog's Hair of the Dog at Laguna Seca. 45 cars there, but that's typical for this facility. For Saturday's 6.5 hours event, top 3 cars were on the lead lap. First was On the Edge in a boring BMW. 39 seconds behind was the Arschloch Rennen driving another boring BMW. And 47 seconds later was the third in Door Slammers in their Miata. The Evo finished just in front of the Failbird in 30 seconds, but the Omega was 20th. So both of our Lemons Racer friends had some serious problems. The Failbird had a wheel bearing problem and then a potential steering column problem. The Omega had brake problems. So then they went to go get the Solstice. Our Solstice.
The WAP!
Really?
The WAP!
They tried to use the Solstice, but it was not excited to be in the fill-in position, so it told them so with check engine lights.
I did not realize they went to get the Solstice for Saturday.
Well,
no,
that
they
far
brought
away.
it. They brought it. Yeah, it was there.
Oh, they brought it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Not.
Oh.
So on Sunday, the 7.5 hour race, the top 3 were the same lap again. Door Slammers first and second, and their Miatas about a minute apart. Third was the Mustang, the Blue Cheetahs. This time, the Evo was a lap behind for fourth. Failbird cracked the steering column, like we said, had to pack it in early. The rough weekend for those guys. So, but Corey finished 42nd. Sorry,
Well,
buddy.
because he had a brake problem.
Yeah,
Brake problems.
like that's what we said.
So, what do we know about lap times? Was the Failbird at all like keeping up with the traffic? Do we know? We don't know.
Wasn't watching.
Oh,
I was watching. I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. I mean, I was only opening it and looking at the laps, and it looked pretty consistent. Everybody's running 150, low 150, so like 151. I think it was pretty consistent.
So they were not.
They
No,
were.
they
Yeah.
Yeah, they were mid-pack. They had to run the EC class because they didn't have the spec tires.
Got
it.
Right. All right. Listener feedback time.
Okay, so I posted what you working on. Got a few inputs. Racing G73 said they got the Rust Bucket Parts Miata up on jack stand so I can start stripping it. And our buddy Randy was trying to see if he can pay for a black market liver replacement for Showbiz Pizza tokens. We'll be talking about that in a little bit.
Don't let my son know we're talking about Showbiz Pizza. He's going to be down here in a minute. Like, Rockafire Explosion. I love the Rockafire Explosion.
Yep.
What you're talking about?
On the tube from our Eric Rude show, Al Jones said that his half-inch torque wrench is from the Isle of Shame at Aldi. No regrets.
That's amazing.
Wait a minute. I don't want any crap for buying any tools at the Harbor Freights.
We don't give you that.
Oh, we buy lots of tools at the Harbor Freight.
Aldi.
Yeah.
Next time you go, tell us what you find.
That's not even a good tool to go cheap on. Come on now. I'm sorry. Go on. No regrets. No
It's your turn.
regrets. Keep going. Oh, it's mine. Sorry. Our European buddy Erling mentioned the Corvette sinkhole was on an episode of Roadkill. I didn't realize that. I didn't get to watch a lot of Roadkill. He's of course referencing the Corvette Museum. We talked about the going to the track and the sinkhole that ate up the Blue Devil. So Chrissy checked in with his hearing because I yelled a lot, I guess.
I think it was our wonderful guest. At some point, he was like making fun of something, and he went, "Oh," and he like ate his microphone. And all I could think of what normally we would say, and I'm like, "No, Erling." But
he said it was okay because he was on speakers, not on headphones when he listened to the show. So that's always good.
And Ron Harrington let us know he thought we did a great job on the Lemons iRacing stream Sunday night. It was awesome to be a part of it. Thanks, Ron. Great to have you and your fantastic themes there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We love Ron. We should talk about it. The I Suck at Racing truly epic event that was the Kim Harmon Scrotium 500 key party. For those of you who aren't aware and might not know that we we had a key party theme in our regular race cars 100 years ago, and we were all on the broadcast talking about, wouldn't it be cool if we could like force people to trade iRacing cars? And Nate Levine, who is the brilliant man behind a lot of the iRacing that is done in Lemons, came up with a way to do it. He paired 40 racers. He had them qualify and took the fastest and put them with the slowest. And it came out to a great 2-hour enduro at Road Atlanta, which is where we would have had the iScrodium regular meet space race. The cars were the Miatas and the Jettas, and driven right. Turned out they're both pretty close to each other.
This was a fundraiser for Lemons of Love, and it made over $3,000, which
we had a gigablast there.
Yeah, it just underscores as much that you guys in the Lemons community and the iRacing community as a whole are awesome. Thank you all so much. The biggest single donation, $300 from Soggy. Speaking of Giga Blast, the first team to actually cross the line was car number 86. It was a duo of Shane Cochran and Carl Edwards. But before the race started, Eric had put the 40 cars or 20 into a random number generator, and he got 7. So we decided that was the real winner was going to be number 7, and that was number 30, Greg Schnittinger and Peter Monin.
But that's not all. OnlyLambs.com CEO Randy Bish was able to raise $1,200 of it. So initially that was to buy him a shot of $10 every time somebody donated $10. When that shot number hit 56, he asked for mercy and said, "Can you buy it down?" And that landed him in the 20s. So he joined us in the booth. He made us think that around, he thinks that he cut around 18, but he wasn't sure that he actually existed. He finished the race dead last, no surprise, but he still finished and joined us in the booth. And for the follow on, almost 40 Delaras and MX-5s racing on dirt at Linear Speedway. It was great fun, and Matt Cordier won that one as well.
That was hilarious.
Randy was more coherent than I expected.
He was. The race was good, and I thought the dirt race was absolutely hilarious. That was fantastic. At some point, there was an overhead shot, and it was cool because the Miatas had headlights and the Delaras didn't. So like the panning of the headlights made it look like it was like UFOs landing.
The Delaras had way too much grip. Someone didn't do a good title about a dirt track and a Delara on slicks.
No.
Oh well. We like to break the iTunes physics models for things.
iRacing, not iTunes.
That's iTunes, fine. Whatever. Them too.
Everyone knew.
Screw their physics model. Their physics model sucks.
Yeah.
That's
a song. What are they, crazy?
Right. Speaking of things that suck, we had an E1R race on Monday. We traveled to the Okayama circuit in Japan for a battle with Radicals and Pro Mazdas along with 87s, but nobody picked the 87s. Everyone was in the Radicals and Pro Mazdas. So we followed that with Spec Racer Fords, Mustangs, and the Skippy cars. Race 1 was a little smaller turnout. The Radicals were clearly faster in the high gears in the Mazda. The body work has a little bit of aero at the high speed. So that made a solid difference, even though they're pretty same in the corners though. Race 2, we had a big group, some really close racing. The track is pretty technical with second gear corners and high speed sections. It's all over the place. So it was decent fun for a free track, especially. It was also great to have Ward Burglar Aaron join us for his very first time.
I had no idea.
Yeah, you probably saw him into a wall in various places as you went by. He's still getting the hang of it. A Radical's a tough car to start with for your first iRacing thing.
Did he get like a real rig, or is he like?
I don't know. I don't know. Dave said he pieced them together. So, I mean, I don't think it's pulling on strings to joysticks and things like that.
Or he's lighting up a pickle so he can.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I was thinking is he on a controller? Does he have a steering wheel?
You could just add it to the.
You can ask
chat.
him.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We know how to get a hold of him, but it was great to have him there. Thanks for being there, Aaron.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure he's very excited to get back.
I feel bad about missing it now that I know Aaron was there. Bummer.
Well,
that happened
luckily,
like that night. I don't think he.
Yep. He can come back. If he's got the stuff.
So I was going to say, luckily, we race every Monday night. If you would like to join us on the E1R iRacing, we have a lot of good fun. It's not serious. If you take it too seriously, Tom Lamino will hit your rear bumper at a high rate of speed.
He doesn't show up though.
Suggest that it was a sexual act.
Yeah. Tom's usually at the 10 o'clock race.
We have a good time. We play fun stuff. It's really fun. If you have an iRacing rig and you're tired of the seriousness of racing, come on out with us.
I think next week it's time for Irwindale with the jump again.
Yeah, It's been a while. And we had crappy cars last time. Like I didn't...
Oh, we did like the big ass truck, whatever.
Well, that's usually okay. But Jeff, you were in the sprint car.
I was in the sprint car, which had no traction. It was terrible.
I think completely wildly inappropriate cars on the figure eight with the jump are the best ones. I will say the Pro Mazda, not so good. Every four times off the jump and it's smoking at the back. So don't pick that one.
Monday, 9 o'clock.
Perfect.
At Eastern. 9 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, mine.
Exactly 55.
I was trying to make sure I didn't interrupt mental. Monday, 9 o'clock. Find us on any of our social medias to get the password. The only reason we put a password in is to make sure we don't get every swinging nevermind in there who's like, why isn't this a serious race? So
you just joined a race at Irwindale. I mean, I'm sure. I guess there are some serious races. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. But it's boring without the jump.
If you know our favorite brake pad, you already know the password.
Oh, and get on the Discord.
And get Discord. Yeah.
You know who never takes iRacing too seriously?
But would really like the jump at Irwindale. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay,
I would say we should totally have your mom on the like give her the let her sit in the rig. But I imagine the conversation after about 10 minutes. Oh, these people are terrible.
I mean, kind of.
Oh man, I have to say I did the notes a while back. There's a lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff has been added, so we should really get right to it. The main topic.
I went to open my mouth twice, and then some people go, okay, all right. Okay, we're talking engine swaps. Remember I told you to listen to all the crap that we did this weekend, and that was not even all of it. We're going to talk engine swaps. This is part number 2 of a mini multi-part series. We don't even know how many. Okay, so we told you to not start with most engine swaps, especially in not total custom or completely insane. All of this is kind of relative, I suppose.
We have the 4 categories. It's stock plus, same chassis,
yeah.
Totally custom and completely insane.
Okay.
And which one you're doing, go back to our last episode. Anyway.
And number 3 is kind of like known custom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's like, screw it. We got this flathead. Let's put it in.
All right. We're back to tell you about how to avoid this sort of pain and work and how you can learn from some of our mistakes, because you will probably learn that. So we were last on episode 170. So go back and listen to that one so you can remember the main topic, what Chris was just talking about. And we just told you the reasons not to swap the motors, set the stage for types of swap that you could possibly do, and how it will nickel and dime you to be poor. And there's pros and cons. All right. We're going to go down the road of sadness. And maybe we'll have future domination. Maybe so. Okay.
We won't make it that far. Don't worry.
Obviously, what engine are you going to pick? And there's multiple factors to think about when you're going there, and it's size, and not just will it fit, because anything fits if you have a welder, but you got to be able to get to everything, especially if you're doing this in a race car. It's going to break. The race car always breaks. So you got to be able to get to the starter. You got to be able to get to the spark plugs, the wires, all the stuff you're going to need to replace in there, the shape of it. And when we talk about that, it's that front or rear sump availability. Some motors are extra wide. The Ford 4.6 versus the Ford 4.6 quad cam, much wider than the 5-liter even. Power to meet the goals. Weight, less is better. Hence the popularity of K-swapped Miatas and Ecotech swapped Miatas. Parts, availability, and that usually is tied in with your cost. The knowledge base. Granted, it's a really silly idea to throw a flathead 6 into a 90s Camaro, but if your entire team is pretty good with a flathead 6 because they pull it out of another car, you're probably going to be okay. But if nobody understands how a Coyote 5.0 works, then you probably shouldn't be messing with that engine. And then
or internet knowledge base too. Like, has this been done? Does anybody know how to do stuff? It's like, anything on an LS, for example, you can find somebody that already did that and posted about it.
Yeah.
That's all. You can keep going.
And then finally, the last aspect of that is all of the other. Oh, okay. Am I gigablasted?
No, sorry. Yeah, gigablasted.
Okay. You gigablasted a little. Go on.
All right, sorry. So in the same for all the other bits, your transmission, your differential, you could put this great engine transmission in there, but the rear end's not going to handle the power. Then you're just ripping that part out as well. The ECU, the wiring, the accessories, everything, you're going to have to find a home for all that stuff. And you can't just slap it anywhere because it could get heat soaked or burned or splashed. So think about, there is multiple layers that you're looking at on here. Jeff.
I just want to say that the knowledge base is probably one of the best things that you really need to consider, because every time like a new motor comes out, they're like, oh, we could swap that motor into a blah, blah, blah. Well, somebody's got to be on that bleeding edge. And usually that's got to go first. So don't be the first person to swap it, no matter what it is.
Especially in lemons, because you need the cheap solutions.
Yeah.
For endurance racing, and the reliable solutions. If you're the bleeding edge, that means you're the one that's going to break and teach everyone else how to do it. So don't do
that it's a really, really dumb idea. And I'm trying to find a link on here, but I want to say it was one of the gearhead groups I follow, but it was an LS swap shop. This is how they make their living, is dropping LSs. And they wrote a 2-page op-ed on why putting LSs in everything is stupid. And the guy would say, look, I understand I make my living do this, and I'm telling you it's dumb. Don't do this. And it was going through just the concept of the difficulty and kind of underscoring the lies that have been told to you by your favorite automotive YouTuber.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Chris, why don't you run us down some of the most popular ones?
Yeah, some people are determined, so they're deciding, I'm going to do this anyway. I don't care what these fools say. So some of the ones that you're going to hear talked about. Honda K Series, which is taken over for the prior B Series, which is the one that everyone swapped into their 93 Civic back in the day from an Integra. Anyway, the K is out. It's much better. It's in everything. We have one. The knowledge base is amazing. It's the best 4-cylinder ever made. It spins the right way for a Honda for once. Comes in flavors up to 205 horsepower stock. And
people are also putting them into Miatas, MR2s.
Everything.
I've seen it in a lot of stuff.
Yep. And they can make huge power. They seem to be fairly reliable. You pretty much use a Honda transmission. If it's in front drive, it's a rear drive. They make adapters for everything from BMW transmissions to Miata transmissions. None of it's cheap, though. None of it's cheap. So there's that.
These are all over the import racing scene also.
Yep.
You can find K Series.
You can make ridiculous. You can build a K Series brand new from all aftermarket parts, including like billet blocks. Like, that's what's out there. It's amazing. So it's basically the LS of the 4-cylinder world.
There you go.
Yep.
Let's get to some cubes.
Ford
displacement.
302.
Hell yeah.
The 4.9 5.0 that they've last made these in 1995. They were popular over the Chevy swap back in the day because they're physically smaller than the Chevy, and the distributor's up in the front, not back on the firewall, which is a big problem for some with the Chevy swap. So they can't make as much power, but there's still plenty of things that came out of Fox bodies around, or out of Lincoln Mark 7s and things like that, but they're all getting old.
All of your Crown Vics, your trucks, the Air, the whole 9.
Oh yeah, there were a billion out of them, but 750 million have been crushed by now. So
or raced to death.
Right, but you can still get anything you need from Summit for that kind of stuff. So they're out there, decent transmission choices. I mean, they're not a bad choice, but they're kind of in the shadow now a bit, but they're still okay.
5.0 and T5 is the LS of swaps before the LSs were made.
Yeah, pretty much. Other Ford options is the 4.6 is really durable, but enormous, like enormous. Even the single cam ones, huge. The 5.0 Coyote or the 3-valve, even huger. They're enormous. So watch out for that. because it's great to make a motor that this will fit, and then you need to take a cylinder head off. Nope, that's an engine out job now.
Yes,
yeah.
If you ever want to really daunt yourself, look at the routing diagram of a quad cam 4.6 liter timing belt.
Still not as bad as an Audi 4.2 that's on the back.
No, it is not. But no one. Well, if you're swapping Audi 4.2s, you're a lost cause or you're a genius.
Yeah. There was plenty of people that thought, I'll get this Boxster, and the Audi 4.2 will bolt right to that transmission because the Boxster has a blown engine, because they all do. And this is going to be great. And then they bought the parts and said, oh.
Yeah.
So small block Chevy, or now the LS or LT. I mean, this is McDonald's. Anything you need is available. Anything has been done. The old Chevy still works, but the LS is just better in every single way.
But there's more of them, and they're newer and they're fresher, and
Yeah. And they've been around long enough that you can still go to a flea market and buy, 3 cams for $10 and just put the biggest one in, right? That's an Andy Nelson trick. So yeah, it's a V8. You pick the size, you pick the power, you pick the cost. The sky's the limit. Have a good day.
What, one wire alternator?
You want aluminum? You want cast iron? They come in all kinds of flavors.
You name it. You can mix and match. Oh, supercharged? Oh no. You want a turbo kit? Sure. How many do you want? Yeah, whatever you want to do. They're all there. Every choice you could possibly want. Some domestic 4-cylinders. The Ecotec is popular because GM stuff has all been hacked to death, and because in the Turbo Solstice and Skies they made some pretty decent power, and the Cobalt too. So they can make good power. The more mundane ones less so. Excuse me. They don't have the character of the K swap. They just don't feel as good. They're just kind of a little more agricultural and whatnot. But damn if they're not cheap. Yeah, and the transmission in every Solstice or the 2-wheel drive Colorados, those all bolt up, and there's weird things you can do with bell housings from a Dodge Dakota 2.5.
Yeah, so I was going to say the Dakota bell housing. That's the one to get, right?
Right. You can put it to a Toyota transmission, whatever. There's all kind of crap like that you can do. And now there's the Tremec TKX and stuff too. But anyway, that's out there. But that's essentially anything from 140 horsepower to 260 stock from GM. There's also the Duratec MZR. This is Ford said, we need a 4-cylinder engine, but we're terrible at those. So Mazda, you do it.
Yep.
And Mazda did. And they came up with the Duratec MZR, which is still in use to this day as the EcoBoost. So any 4-cylinder EcoBoost is still actually based on an old 80s Mazda design. That's what it is.
I did not know that.
It's all based on the old F thing, like out of like an 8626. That's
yeah.
Or that's the L. Anyway, one of those two. One of those old Mazda designs that it was updated to become that. That's what we have in Chrissy's Mazda, for example. So these can be front drive with Mazda 3 or 6 or Fusion parts. They can be rear drive with Ranger or Miata parts. Stock power levels or anything from 140 up to, what's the EcoBoost Mustang now? 300 and something?
Yeah, something.
And Ford sells power packs. They wire those up from scratch and things. So the good support on those for basically anything you want to do. And the regular 2.5s are available in every junkyard for $89.95. All you can carry, because they put them in everything.
Yes.
That's intriguing. I didn't know a lot of people were doing those swaps.
They're not.
Yeah. Some of them are, some of them are not.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people. They're doing it. But
I've heard a lot of Ecotec swaps. I have not seen a lot of MZR Duratec swaps.
A running Ecotec, not one of the ones that Chris mentioned out of the high-end Solstice and Skylines. Yeah, but a running turbo Ecotec out of a Malibu is $300 with 40,000 miles on it. Pulled, waiting
turbo
for
ones,
you.
Turbo ones are only in these high-end Solstice Sky and the Cobalt SS.
Sorry,
so the other ones are like the 160 horsepower mundane, actually feels pretty crappy to drive one, sadly.
They've got there's a flavor of it between the super high performance ones. I want to say it was like 180. And the Sloman brothers know them because they've become Ecotec whisperers over the years. And
the Toyolette.
The Toyolette, they were running one of their, with the Colorado transmission, they were running one of the mid-cycle ones.
It's called the LE5. It has 165 horsepower. It was in the Solstice, and it was in like the Cobalt SS non-super or turbocharged and things like that. So
the Saturn Ion.
Yes, exactly.
My father beat the piss out of that Saturn Ion. That thing was great.
I remember when he did a Dukes of Hazzard at that one rally in that thing. That was a shame.
Well, I think that was really it was more. It wasn't a fancy motor with compression and stuff. It just had more cubes. It was 2.4 instead of 2.2. So if there's no replacement for displacement, you can find it.
Yep. BMW makes 6 cylinders, and there's a lot of them, and they're not too hard to swap into stuff. But there's better things you can do. There's mid-size V6s like the Nissan VQ, not bad, but
come on.
It sounds terrible. It sounds terrible.
VQ sounds good,
but it's good power. It's not too big. It has a good transmission behind it. You know, the wiring is getting figured out. There's the Honda J series, which is cheaper and sounds better and makes just as much power, but harder to get a trans behind it for rear drive stuff.
They're putting them in a lot of Miatas.
There's some, but the Miata trans is getting a little questionable behind a J series.
The J series Miata swap was like when that first came out, man, I loved that. I read about that in Grassroots, I'm pretty sure, and I said, man, this is going to take over because people were putting the 5.0s in, and they were too heavy.
Chris, you're a Honda guy. What's the power output of a J versus a K?
J is anywhere from 200 to 265 stock. K is 160 to 205. But
and you're taking a big weight penalty with the J.
Not too bad, actually. It's all aluminum.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the whole key.
The K has been figured out entirely. J.
That's what happened. They weren't really doing K swaps back then. So the J swaps were like, this is the new frontier and everyone's going to be doing this. And then the Ks came out and it was just better. But
yeah, you can make just as much in a smaller package with less weight. Not too much less, but less enough.
The J swap was like, stop putting 5.0s into your Miatas. They make them terrible pigs.
Now they're doing all kinds of other stuff.
Yep.
People are going to say GM V6s.
Yeah.
Those are a mixed bag. No, those are a mixed bag. There's a mixed bag. The old 90-degree Buick 6s, the 3800s, they're decent. They're compact, but they're getting old. And they weren't cutting edge to begin with. The 4.3 Vortex, it's a 350 with 2 cylinders out of the middle, but with the 305 heads. So the heads are terrible. They made a bunch of changes to them over the years. So like you can swap the short blocks around, but you got to swap everything else for the short block. Some of the newer narrow angle V6s are okay, like the 3500 and 3500 and 3900. People have had good luck swapping those.
Those are the high feature V6s.
Because the high value.
High
V6,
value. Yeah.
Right. Whatever it was. They make decent power and they're cheap. And some people for Champ Car, they're great because their point value is nothing because they were in every like Chevy Uplander that was made, and they make 220 horsepower. And you could there's all kinds of transmissions you can put to them. Like every V6 Camaro T5 will bolt right up. So they can be good choices, and they're apparently better than the old 2.8s and 3.1s because those were just crap. Yeah. As everyone who has a Fiero will know.
I think you missed a line in there about those 4.3s, and it's something we personally have experience with, and that we've seen a dozen times in the paddock.
I said, that the short blocks are the only thing that interchange, and that you got to get all of the other stuff that might, because they changed fuel injection systems a few times, they changed heads a little bit, they changed all that stuff. So yeah, like we in our Glenn's truck up at New Hampshire. Just this past fall, they blew up their motor. The only one they could find nearby was from like an 04. Well, they had to swap the entire heads, everything, just a short block.
And the intake and all the accessories, everything got different.
And when you call the junkyard, they're going to be like, yeah, we got a 4.3.
Yeah, we got 4.3. Yeah, come on, we'll get it.
Yeah. No.
Yep. So that's just the start. I mean, you can swap in and pretend to swap in anything you want, but those are some common ones that there's usually some support behind that you can do things with. So
and GMV6s were like the stalkers and stuff like that. We talked about that earlier. They had their heyday, but that day is done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really a key, is that there are things move in and out of favor because people have figured it out. The reason people aren't doing 5.0 swaps anymore is because they're all gone.
Or people have figured out better things.
A better thing. Absolutely. Better things too. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And where so now, like, said the GMV6 stuff, people have figured out the new GMV6, the LFX. And they're starting, that's kind of been figured out now. So people can do that. So why would you start with a 200 horsepower 3,400 when you could have a 300 horsepower LFX that's in every single Camaro.
Yeah.
You know, well, there's a bell curve in engine prices at junkyards too, and it's not the older the car gets, the cheaper it is.
That's absolutely true.
It's around that like 10-year mark is when the engines are cheapest, because that's when most of these things are getting pulled into junkyard.
And 5 years later, when they're now 15 years old, they're getting really crappy, or they're there but they're just terrible. I
mean, look at everything that's in a buy here, pay here lot right now. That's your junkyard. That's
your sweet
population.
Spot.
5 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Chris used a lot of terms there, and he talked about a lot of different motors, and now your head's swimming. You're like, I could put anything in. Let's really get down to brass tacks. You got to get out there and you got to start measuring this stuff. Mental said everything will fit. Well, you got a welder. Yeah, sure. But dimensions are important. We're gonna put a link in the show notes. It's from teambuick.com. It's engine dimensions. It's a great chart. You can see it. It's some older stuff. Some of the newer stuff you might have to look around, but you're gonna have to look around to find it.
If you just Google engine dimensions for insert engine here, you'll find something.
Absolutely.
If it's any of the common engines, you'll absolutely find it.
Yeah, people know it. It's on the internet. Google it. But let's talk about some general things. Chris already mentioned that one's really wide or that one's really tall. Look, overhead cams, they're going to make that car more powerful, but they're also going to make that motor really big on top. He said narrow angle versus 90 degree angle V6s are wider than the narrow angle 60 degree V6s. That means the V, because not everybody knows what we're talking about here. The V of the motor, the left bank and the right bank are either 60 degrees or 90 degrees apart. And obviously, from basic angles that a 60 degree will be narrower, but slap 4 cams on the top and you might no longer be a smaller motor. So you really got to look at all this. You might think that things are generally the same size, but I'm telling you that D16 single overhead cam, Y8 Honda motor was absolutely dwarfed by the K24. I was amazed at how different the size is. They're both Hondas. They're both 4 cylinders, and they were drastically different sized.
Ask me how I know when you have to put the engine in, take the engine out without the engine hoist.
Look, Chrissy lifts the D16 with one hand and a White Claw on the other. She's got to go.
Okay. Let's
squat down. Lift with your legs, not with your back, which is moving the K24.
I mean, for years, Chrissy and I really would swap the motor in and out of the Civic, the D16, with just 2 of us lifting it up over the front of the car.
Yeah.
That was it.
Really, the engine, the oil pan that it was not like flat was the worst part, because you just had to balance it. Somebody got the heavy end, so we had to balance it. It was kind of awkward that the bottom wasn't flat. Other than that, it was fine.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely right.
Dimensions are going to make a really, really big difference. And if you want to go under the hood, if you want to, these things really matter. So anyway, so you're going to go to the hood. We already said you're going to go to the internet. You're going to look at the dimensions.
Or find a friend with that same motor.
Sure.
Ask them for measurements or measure it yourself. See where the weird stuff is.
You really need to take into account the accessories. Okay, you need to measure where the block hits, but you also need to where the accessories are. You might end up with that motor will fit, but there's no room for a radiator, or you have half an inch between the timing case and the radiator. Well, I thought it would fit because I looked at the measurements. So you really need to know where the measurements are. And this is also where some different cars might offer different parts. We have a Corvette pulley set on our LS 4.8 in the Z, because they're a lot narrower than the truck accessories.
Yeah, so it's more than an inch. It sucks all the accessories.
I think it's even more than that, because it was an inch, and then there was the bolt. So the accessories being skinnier make that entire motor package much less lengthy. I'm trying to not use the same word again and say skinnier.
Girthy.
Girthy. No, girthy's wide.
Oh, okay.
Skinner's long, really, because we're talking about, because it's regular mounting. how much space between the radiator and the block. So yeah, so really you're going to have to look into that. And that's where a thing like an LS, where there's different options, you're going to be able to find a bracket from one thing that puts the alternator up top and a bracket from something else that puts it down the bottom, where the accessories go, where the routing of the hoses go, what does the water pump look like? All of that can change even on the same motor. Chris, go on.
And it's not just the length you were talking about, it's the positioning. Like if the accessories are mounted down low, that might not fit between your frame rails, where if they're up high, it might.
Or it might hit the hood.
Right.
Depending on what you're putting it in.
And even things like watch out for where your water pump outlets and things are. Is it pointing just straight forward? Well, that's not going to do you any good. Like now you got to figure out something else, for example.
And those kinds of things, like nobody thinks about like, where does the nozzle go for the Chris just mentioned, for the water out of the block? That stuff matters, and it matters on how complicated you're going to be, and the stock location, that might be the furthest thing out. The water pump outlet might be the longest part of the motor. So you got to look at all that. Engine mounting methods, this is another one. Once you know that it's going to fit, how are you going to attach it? Rubber mounts, solid mounts, motor
straps.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. What?
Yeah,
talk about
it's almost like we had show notes.
I do have show notes.
But there's a difference between what he's saying and what you're saying.
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
So
okay. I have my show notes. It's right there.
Go ahead.
Because the mounts can affect where it sits. Because if it sucks it down, if you have a 1-inch mount, that is going to bring it down lower to the frame rails, which might screw up where your oil pan is, but it also might give you that hood clearance. So mounts can affect height, can affect location, what's available. Are you going to have to cut something up? Are you going to be like taking a hockey puck to a belt sander, trying to get that extra half an inch so you fit somewhere? All of this is going to be out there, and you can buy mounts. Chris, I believe you say that it's the Hansport mounts. Hasport, thank you. Hasport mounts that are in the Honda. We're in the LS swap, so literally there were 27 different versions of plates and things that you could weld together, and you could make them from scratch. At some point, someone out there is going to be drilling a hockey puck. And from what I hear, by the Canadian hockey pucks, because they're better made than the American ones. I'm serious.
And they're metric, so they'll go with a lot of them.
And they say A, and they're pretty polite.
I was literally on a YouTube channel where they said, I got a lot of heat in the comments because I didn't buy Canadian hockey pucks because they're supposedly a better durometer and they last longer. Whatever, who knows?
I don't know what that's all about.
I don't know. Whatever. Engine mounts matter because you can measure that you have 27 inches between your frame rail and your hood. And if the motor is 27 inches, you ain't got the room because it's going to have a mount.
And lastly, make sure there's something actually solid in your car you can mount it to that's somewhere near where the mounts are on the motor, because that's not always the case.
That's a quite yeah. That you're absolutely right. If you're going to have to build a structure in the car to mount the motor, that is a whole nother complicated problem, but not insurmountable.
Or somebody's done it for you.
I think I would rather custom a lower frame for the motor mount than cut a firewall.
Yeah. We're talking about fitting stuff in there. All right. So the engine fits, but now you got to start thinking about your secondary interference. And I personally can name off a dozen friends dating all the way back to my high school days whose great swap project has been
dated a dozen friends in high school. Do they all know about each other?
That's what you pulled from that. I mean, it was a bad joke, and you stretched to get it. I mean, I'll laugh if it makes you feel any better. But okay,
I enjoyed it.
That makes one. But we're talking about the secondary interference. But I can name off, going all the way back, is a dozen projects that were side railed because they could not figure out how to get an exhaust around a steering rod. because that's the thing you don't.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Attacked by this.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about here. Could
All right.
you?
So yeah, the motor fits in there, but you've got no way to get your exhaust between the motor and the steering shaft, or or the fender wells, or anything like that. And that throttle body points right at the firewall, and it's got no clearance. So you're gonna have to double and triple, and even after that, your hood clearance, your firewall clearance, and your fan or radiator clearance. On the
distributor,
Chris measured that fan to radiator clearance a dozen times, and it still was tighter than we thought it was going to be. Just there's millimeters and quarter inch here and there and everywhere. So you want to give yourself plenty of room on that one. And this is the point that everyone misses, because it's not something you notice until it's too late. But it's that drive line angle. You're going to have to adjust your engine location on the car to get that at a proper angle. Otherwise, you're going to wear out your components, and you're going to have all kinds of weird vibrations. And this applies to both your front wheel drive and your rear wheel drive. Our friends at We Like the Tuna here told us already that they ate, what did they say, 4 Cobalt SS axles?
Yeah.
Oh,
we
might
have
had this conversation this
or
weekend.
3.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of those things. And driveline is a very, very precise thing. You think, oh, it's just got to be like this, because you've watched too many of those SEMA builds with those ridiculous, drive shafts that are doing that. But if you're building a race car or something, you're going to drive on the street, that driveline needs to be very, very smooth. Otherwise, components are going to wear out.
Yeah, for rear drive, you have to match angles. You don't necessarily want it perfectly straight. Actually, you want a little bit of an angle to it, but it's got to be like 2 degrees from the trans to the drive shaft, and then 2 degrees from the diff to the drive shaft, if for a live axle. Otherwise,
pinion angle. Google it, everybody.
Right. Exactly. If you're doing independent rear suspension with a Guibo, then it's all got to line up pretty well. Front drive, you don't want to have a wacky inboard angle all the time. That's going to wear those out real fast.
Mm-hmm.
So you might think oh yeah, these guys are talking. They're really smart. They can figure all this out. Chris, how did our axles do the very first time we took that Honda out?
They were great for half a day.
So mad. and so mad.
Eric Rude teched our card. What did he say?
He made us.
How many axles are you going to swap this weekend? And we were like, none, because we just fixed the axle.
They were brand new.
Brand
new from Rock Auto.
Lifetime guarantee, sucker.
Yep.
But this is what I'm saying.
We had to get good ones, really good ones.
Well, no, but custom made, really, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Because we were swapping, but even going back, think all the way back to the all-wheel drive Honda days, there was those kids next to us who slept in their tents and it rained, and we were really sad about that.
They had a Grand Am.
They had a Grand Am with some sort of 3.1 swap. It wasn't even a fantastic swap. I don't even remember what it was. But they kept losing their axle cups because the suspension on their car had more droop in it. So the angles were fine, but when they would go over a bumpy section of the track, it would literally just pull the axle apart. And they solved it in the worst way possible. They just welded a chain between their control arms and the body of the car.
I mean, that sounds like a great idea.
But this is the kind of stuff that you're going to don't swap your motor, people. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, now that you figured out what motor you would like and you've considered all of the things that have to stick out of it, let me just say, I'm laughing at all of these things because we write this stuff and most of these things we have talked about, if not have actually already tried to fix on our car. And so I just feel like we've done this. And my question to when people are listening about this, how do you figure this out without busting all the axles? How do you figure out? Okay.
You don't.
Some of it's measurement. So a lot of, if you're
Google
super careful and analytic, no, you measure what is the distance from this to this? What is the distance from here to here? Some people make mock-ups even of out of cardboard that are close.
Yeah, Hamza would do that, but I'm not sure how most people are going to do it.
No, if he would do it out of laser sintered metal.
Sure.
Well, I think he would just 3D print it.
Sure.
If you have a common swap, they sell mock-up plastic or plastic engine blocks for an LS.
Oh, yeah.
You can buy a plastic engine and you can how do it fit with the holes in the right spot. They're not cheap.
We might not have done that.
No, it's too late now.
Okay.
But it's all of the measurements you do will get you into that ballpark. and you're still going to have issues.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of people design it with an empty block. Like,
yep,
they have the full motor, but then they have a bare block that they look and figure out the mounts and you know.
And this is all for the mostly custom swaps. If you're just doing a stock plus or a same chassis swap, this isn't really a problem. You know, let's remember that too. Like those really but don't try to reinvent the wheel. If this has been done by an OEM, use their parts. They're probably the right ones and they're probably going to work. So just use those. If you're doing it by yourself, that's when all this stuff applies.
Okay. I'm talking about mounts, and I really do think that most of y'all talked to us about some of this stuff. But let's talk about mounts. You've got this engine. Now you're going to try to put it in this car. It may or may not fit. It may or may not fit by like centimeters, or you're smashing your hand when you're trying to put it in the car. We played the game
gonna
of
smash your hand.
How much you have? Go. Nope. Stop. No.
And a little more. And a little more.
No. Right.
No.
Ow,
No,
my
back
head!
out.
Right.
Up.
So that's
Jim, pump, Jim, pump more, harder. Nope, let it down.
Worst porno soundtrack ever.
Oh no! And then there's so much owies because because the engine has swung to it smashed your hand between this engine and the firewall and okay. Anyway, use stock mounts if you have them. That sounds a great idea. Or if not, make sure that you find a prefab kit. Are there stock mounts is something that you can actually fit? So I think the ones that we're using are something that is not exactly stock, but we made it work. I think we figured out, we kind of did some welding and made some, like metal that seemed like it was going to line up with where the, where the mounts were. And we just made it work to what our setup was. Yes, go ahead, Chris.
What I was thinking for the Honda, we got the Hassport mounts. It's a prefab kit. This will bolt this motor into this car and it will do it well, right? The ones we got for the Z these will bolt to the side of the LS, and then they got some metal bits.
Good luck. Figure out the rest on your own.
You have to now cut and weld the rest of it together. So they're very different ways of going right there.
But it was a good start. So at least we know the bolt holes line up, and now we just need to figure out where the plate goes. And both of them were completely different, so you had to know which one was which. But we made it work, and they're gold and they're beautiful. Jeff, great job. High five.
Gold paint. That's
right?
The one we had.
They make it look good. So if you decide that you need the new subframe, stop right now and run away. Because that is not a good idea. You are in the completely insane category, and you're just not going to be happy with this, because mounting the engine, obviously very important. So don't mess with that kind of stuff. So now that you want to put your engine in and you have figured out what kind of mounts you're going to have it, how's it going in? And is your front suspension going to support it? Hopefully you figured out how much this weighs. And you might be surprised. I think we were surprised when we put we put the whole car on the ground. We said, how is this going to sit? And of course, then you have suspension issues. And, but is your suspension going to be good enough to hold said probably larger engine? And what's it going to do to it? So, what's it going to do to the balance? And then you might need to be replacing more than you planned because you figured out that now I have no clearance because the weight is too much. And how are your brakes? They're gonna add weight and hopefully speed, but you're adding the weight and speed. So now you have to figure out, are your brakes going to be big enough? Usually it's like, oh, let's go faster. And then the brakes are the next things to upgrade because now you can't stop. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say this. I made fun earlier of the 5-liter first generation Miata swaps. This is what was wrong with the 5-liter Miata. They call them like Godzilla Miatas or whatever.
Monster Miatas.
Monster Miatas. Thank you. Monster Miatas. They were so heavy on the nose that they handled terribly. They didn't have enough brakes. They were rockets down the straight, but you lost the Miata-ness of the Miata.
Yep.
They get better as long as you put aluminum heads and aluminum intakes and
but now you're like totally
and stuff.
Making
you got it better, but still.
This is why the turbo swap became so popular because it was
yeah.
Okay. Next, does your steering clear? Maybe you might not know that your steering doesn't clear until you have now tried to put your engine in and you said, great, it's awesome, it's holding up. And then you're like, oh, it's holding up on the steering. So that's probably probably going to be a problem. Just take it into consideration. How about your exhaust? Does your exhaust fit now? Because it's probably not in the place where the channel of where the previous exhaust went in, probably not going to be the same place. So now that your car is lower, your nose is lower, is the exhaust going to drag? How's your exhaust actually going to fit? And your oil pan, because that's on the bottom too. So what happens when you have this beautiful oil pan with the most beautiful welds and you say, wow, this looks really great. And then you put the engine in and then you say, well, it's now sitting on the pan. Well, let's now take the engine out again for a 75th time, and then now take the pan off. Now have the Wakeman Valdez, because the engine that you have is still pouring oil,
pouring out motor
over
LS
the place.
Motors never stop pouring out oil. We should mention this. If you try and do an LS swap, you're gonna have a puddle of freaking oil in your garage.
Even when you try to not have
what
this,
you do,
it's going to be there. So now you have a steering. So now you have to take your pan and now you have to crush your pan, or you cut your pan and you weld your pan. And now it is not as beautiful as it used to be. So chances are you will probably have to do a custom oil pan. I'm tempted to say.
Look around for what's available. If an engine has been in a number of cars, there are a number of different pans available. Like for some of the ones we talked about, for the LS, is it a truck pan? Is it a Corvette pan? Is it a Camaro pan? Is it a CTSV
Corvette pan with wings? That's different than the Corvette
the Batwing,
pan,
right?
The Batwing.
So you got to research into which one of those might fit for you. Like Ford 5 liters, they had the front sump pans in some of them and rear sump pans in others, which is entirely different drive shafts. But is your cross member going to fit there?
And make sure your dipstick goes to the bottom of the pan and not the top of the pan, because then you will say, oh, I don't have any oil in here. Or there's so much oil in here, whichever end it's.
Did that happen to us? You sound like you're speaking from experience.
I'm looking at one of our other people here.
Oh, that's only if it gets blocked by a baffle that you make.
Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. When we're talking about oil pans, I'm just saying. Okay. Got it.
We should do an entire
hold on.
episode on oil pans.
Mental had his hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Everything Chrissy talked about also, but when you do end up doing your old cool custom pan, did you do enough clearance around that one? Because I spent a race weekend pulling a motor out 4 times because the pan kept hitting the front cross member and cracking, and we couldn't figure out why.
Shh, don't say that.
And make a baffle when you make it too while it's out. You might as well. Some door hinges and sheet metal and Play-Doh, and you can do it. Exhaust, like Chrissy said, you got to find a place to put it. There have been a lot of creative solutions over the years. Like the MGB V8 had headers that went into the fenders because that's where it could go. Okay. Are you going to have to get creative? If so, now you're building headers. Now your level of guilty.
Straight up out of the hoods.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Flip them over right out the hood. No big deal. Get a truck flap. Ding, 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 ding.
Except those aren't legal for any race series, but yes.
Except Devo Derby and screw you. Yep.
Every drag guy's somebody's got it right out the hood. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm derailing.
Transmissions. We talked a lot about engines, but transmissions are just as important because there's an 80% chance if you're swapping your engine, you're going to need to swap your transmission too. Some of the more common swaps may have adapter kits, but you're swapping it out for a reason. You're trying to make some more power. So can your stock transmission handle that? Think about where you're going in the future too. Like if you have a T5, all right, that'll hold a stock 5.3 LS or 5 liter. But you put in something hotter, you put a supercharger on your 5 liter, or you put a hotter 6 liter in. Now you're going to grind it up.
Turbo 6 liter.
Right.
Twin Turbski 6 liter.
So now you need now you need a new transmission. And so now custom transmission, maybe you're getting a TKX or a T56 for rear drive stuff.
People might not know what they are. Can you explain those?
TKX is a new Tremec transmission made just for swaps. It's actually a great solution, but it's not cheap. Well, it's cheap for what it is. It's like $3,000, but for a brand new, fairly compact, fairly strong transmission, it's a good value. T56 is the 6-speed that was used in Camaros, the
like later
Camaros and Firebirds and Vipers and stuff like that. So, but a custom transmission means now you're getting custom drive shafts, transmission mounts, clutch linkage, maybe being the hell out of your transmission tunnel, maybe building an entirely new one. Your shifters maybe not be in the right spot. Your pedals might not work anymore. And then if you go into front drive stuff, is that transmission a direct shift or a cable shift or a rod shift? Can you accommodate that even? Like rod shift is really tough to accommodate if your car doesn't have a direct spot to do it, or if you're mounting it behind the driver now for a front drive setup. Rod shift, now you're into weird belt cranks and stuff like that.
Rod shift is bizarre. Most of Volkswagens use rod shift, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, the Civic did, our old Civic did, but it's a really nicely designed setup, and it's got these great straight rods that are right there, and it has a wonderful shift feel.
But you didn't have to move it from where it was supposed to be in the beginning.
Well, the old one, because we did a stock plus swap at first, and we kept the same transmission, and all worked great. And then when we did K, we went to a cable shifter. Well, to put a cable shifter in the car, if I wanted to keep the interior, I have the cat's here. If I wanted to keep the interior, I would have had to mount it under the car entirely. If I wanted, fortunately we didn't have to because race cars, so I can make a bracket to put in a cord shifter with a cord cable. So I had a different bracket I had to make to bolt to the Civic transmission.
It's a lot of brackets
to run cables, right? And there's a bracket to hold the cables as they go through the firewall. There's a big ass hole that they have to get cut to fit through, etc. These take a lot of time, and even pedals. Like Mental, go ahead, and I'll finish on pedals.
I was going to say, after all of that brilliant fabrication work, I have never in my life been so delicate and concerned with a 5-6 shift. Just, is it slow on the clutch? Is it really in 6? Okay, it's in 6. Okay, good. Yeah.
Unfortunately, then I rigged up the solenoid to block out the reverse.
Oh, we needed it because all of us admitted it was happening. And then he's like, it's not happening. It's fine. And we're all just like, okay, we're not going to tell you all the times where we're not sure if we're in gear or not.
Well, and actually, I wasn't worried about reverse as much as I was worried about fourth.
Well, that's it. But now with the reverse lockout, you can kind of hold it against the right side.
Get the gear.
Never.
Yeah.
Start slam shift it like a Talon.
Yeah.
Bam!
Don't do that either. No.
Yep, exactly. Pedals. If you have
pedals, you didn't think you were gonna mess with the pedals, did you?
Yeah, right.
You're gonna.
Yeah.
And he's like, why is Jeff having such a problem with this? And then he tries.
Well, like with the LS, I knew it was rough. I do a lot of rough jobs in that car too. If you're going drive by wire, you now need to mount a new pedal. How does the stock one? You can use that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe you drill some holes in the firewall. Maybe there's no spot to drill it. Maybe it's a weird, not flat spot. That now, how are you going to do that now? And the pedal's going to point like at the dash. So now you have to make a whole actual arm, right?
Even clutch pedals. Yeah,
that's what I'm getting to now. Clutch, like our Civic, it was a cable clutch from the factory. We are putting in a hydro. Guess what? There's no room for a master cylinder on the firewall side because there's a strut tower in the way. So it's got to be on this side. So now I'm making brackets and redesigning the whole pedal cluster to fit a later Civic clutch master cylinder under the dash in an impossible to reach location that kind of fits with the remote reservoir. Right. This is the stuff that takes forever.
Yeah.
So.
And you're going to be engineering all of this stuff if you're doing it on a budget or doing it to something that's never been done before, or you're a little off playbook, or what you're doing is not as common, or that part is just too damn expensive.
Stick to the stock plus or the same chassis swap if at all possible. Because if you're custom, this is the problems. And assuming you've gotten this far, of everything we said tonight, you now have an engine and transmission that's in the car. Really a basic long block and trans in the car. Let's say that. Congratulations. You are now 20% of the way done, and exactly where most engine swaps stall out and die and get parted out.
Well, you mean I can't just fire it up now? It's in there.
That's where it ends up.
I keep asking this actually.
Facebook. That's how it ends up on Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
It's 20%.
It's swapped.
Accurate. Do you feel like
I think 20% is about right.
I'm going to say yes. 20% is accurate if you don't count all the times you have to pull it out and pull it back in. It's 20% of just the effective labor.
Oh,
not counting anything that was ineffective.
Okay.
But, and it's
20%
also
of only effective.
This is also too, if you're not making combined, like we made a race car and did a motor swap at the same time, that was more work than if you already had a race car.
Got it.
And then did
Okay,
the swap,
good.
or
Thank
you put a street car. Like we're doing extra. It also like we're also kind of future proofing stuff, by things like putting an oil cooler in and
fantastic ducting to the radiator.
Right.
My brother like a day and a half, but
right. So we told you this is a bad idea. So you're now at the point where the car is going to get passed out.
We're not lying.
Right. So now if you're this deep in, it's almost too late. It's either cut out now and don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy, or you're dumb like we are and you're going to keep going. So join us for some future episodes where we're going to help you dig out of the hole you're now so deeply in. Shows and topics including, but not limited to, wiring, computer setup, making exhausts, making intakes, making cooling systems, adapting accessories, never-ending wiring, clearancing the rest of the car. Yeah.
I got some accessory stories.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I don't even mean from ours. I literally watched a swap. It was an International Harvester with an LS swap. That when you revved the motor, the steering went left. And I'm not going to tell you why. We're going to talk about that on a future episode.
I mean, it's in every swap though. Like we had to deal with this in the Civic. Like what exact combination of parts can get the belts to go in a place that they might actually work? We did it in the Z. I've done it in other things. Like even a stock plus swap, like the Civic, the single cam non-V to like single cam VTEC. Yeah. The pulleys were a little different and the brackets are a little different. You've got to figure out which combination is going to work.
If you're one of our listeners who've successfully done engine swaps, and we have a lot, if we're missing some of these pitfalls for that episode, we're not going to put it in our listener feedback. For that episode, send us everyone.racers@gmail.com or on our social medias, because we're going to store that for examples when we do the pitfalls episode that Chris is talking about.
Yeah, we want to definitely hear your stories. Tell us about your swap nightmares, or that really cheap ass thing you bought off of Craigslist because the swap was done but not running.
just needs wiring and exhaust.
There.
No problem.
Yeah, no problems.
I know what I have. Don't lowball me. Awesome. Are we ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
We are.
Okay, cool. So, just a tip. Hella sweeter but terrible, and it's in green, so that means I get to talk about it. Tomorrow I have an appointment to drive my first potential next car, and I've mentioned it before. I'm dead tired of the Mazda 3 and 175,000 miles and 220 on the Protege before that. And I'm just tired of Mazda hatchbacks. I'm getting a Ford hatchback. I don't know if that's different enough. I am laser focused and have begun my shopping in earnest, like an entrepreneur in E1R, not seeing any of the yellow flags. I think I'm going to get a 2015 to 2018 Ford Focus ST Coupe or ST3 package that's got the Recaro seats and the moonroof and the Sync 3 system. I've done all of my research. I am now going to go find one. So tell me, folks, is this hella sweet or but terrible? What am I missing? Why is this a bad idea? And what car should I buy instead? Someone tell me how dumb I am.
I think it's the fine choice. And if you decide it's time for you to have a new car, then go for it. You've had the other one for a long time. Although I would say that you are in your prime opportunity to make the most of what you got. Like that car is fully depreciated.
Sure.
You can't make it worth much less except if you light it on fire. So part of me says, you know what? Just wring it out a little more. Like it still runs perfectly fine.
Perfect.
Hence we literally drive my Mazda
right
in any car we own.
Like think about
you're on motor 2. I'm on motor 1.
Well, it was by choice. It's a difference. So
you're pointing at your microphone.
Somebody else. I'm trying to do hand signals, charades here.
Anyway, I think like I would be of the opinion, nurse it a little longer.
Let it roll.
Let it roll. But if you really want something new, then cool. Like you're a big boy, you have a good job. Like go for it. Fine. But I almost feel like you're kind of settling. based on talking to you. Like you're not like, yeah, yes, this is totally what I want. Like I'm excited about this. You're like,
no,
yeah, this is fine. This kind of meets my qualifications. This is fine, but this isn't giving you the fizzies at all.
You're definitely right.
So I'm thinking you should find something that can give you some fizzies.
Have you driven the Merc lately?
And well, but also I know Jeff is completely unwilling to do any real maintenance, which is what all European cars require.
Correct.
So it cannot be a European car. Just not going to happen.
I should mention that in 175,000 miles on this Mazda is still in the stock clutch. The 220,000 Mazda
and stock oil filter probably.
It's probably yes.
I'm sure you're not easy on the clutch.
No,
all the time.
No, driven it hard and wet, and I've never really done any preventative maintenance on it whatsoever. It still has every single original belt.
Yeah. And so that's why you cannot have a European car. But I'm saying, like, if you're going to spring, you're going to make the plunge, rather than stick with the, max depreciation, find something that gives you fizzies. And especially if it takes another 6 months or a year of driving the free car to get a little more ready to go. Then maybe do that. And I don't know what gives you the fizzies really. Like I know you need a back seat. I know you want something fun to drive, and it's got to be pretty reliable without much maintenance. The only other thing that's coming to my head is like a 15 plus Mustang 5-liter, because fun, fast, back seat, reasonably priced. I don't know.
Drive
a Mustang.
You don't want? No. I'm saying I don't know if I could live in rear wheel drive.
Snow tires, man. Snow tires.
Snow tires.
Furthermore,
Snow tires are great.
And you own 4x4.
Right. I daily drove an E30 for years with snow tires. That thing was champ. And yes, you've got a truck with big, gnarly all-terrains.
Oh, you're not wrong.
Okay.
Chrissy, I saw your hand up.
I'm more concerned about the size of the hatch. So you were pissed that you went to Fazio's and your piece of metal didn't fit in the back of your hatch.
Yes.
And so you said, so then you had to leave your piece of metal, get your truck, come back with your truck to get your piece of metal. So I am thinking that this car is not big enough for you. And I said, you have a Forester or whatever she has.
It's a truck too.
So she, right. No, I'm just saying.
I have a Titan.
But you drive your hatch because you like it for the hatch. And I don't think this hatch is big enough. So that's what I am thinking, that it's cute. It's fine. It'll be fun. I'd probably be fun enough. But if you're willing to settle for something that doesn't fit all of the things, I think you're just going to miss things from the 3. And that's why I went to the Merc, because I'm like, I can fit. We can.
It's a lot big. Your Merc is definitely, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But that was part of the game, was that I will not get something with a smaller hatch than the Mazda, and my Mazda, the 07, and all of the rest of them forever and ever. I said, that's why Mazda's out. I love my car, but I will never get anything smaller than that because the hatch is not big enough. And you're playing the game between hot hatch and wagon. You like the idea of a hot hatch. You like the Veloster,
love the Veloster,
right? So you like them, but the hatch is just
too much money.
Well, sure, but I mean, they're just not the size. And
so you think wagon?
I mean, I don't care what you get. I'm just saying
for life, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what you actually want and what you're actually looking at. I don't think are right. Like, I think you either have to say, I'm going to get a Miata. Instead, it's just a big non-convertible, like, bigger car, right? Because this car is is going to be smaller than the Mazda. Go ahead, Chris. You already went, but
a tangent on the side of this. Or if you find something that gives you the fizzies that's not big enough, then you just have to make that commitment that you're just going to drive the truck more. Like, I've lived with having an M Coupe as my daily driver. That car's tiny. When I needed something bigger, you take the Suburban. Yes, the Suburban sucks, but it does the job when you need it, and the time you're not driving it, you're driving a fun car that you actually really quite like.
And for a long time, we did that with 3 cars. That was weird when sometime we had 3 cars, but basically it was the Mazda.
We're almost back there.
We're getting there, but somewhere between the Mazda and the Suburban and a sports car. And we're not going to drive that in the winter, so we just know that if one of us has to go further, who gets the bigger car? You have all these options.
So Chris is saying go smaller. Chrissy is saying go bigger. Mental, what do you got?
Go smaller. I'm saying go for something that gives you the fizzies, whatever that might be.
And I'm in agreement with all of them. The Focus ST is actually a great car. Now, before I listened to Chris and Chrissy, I was going to recommend try the Fiesta with the same options, the Recaros and everything. Super fun car to drive. But both of them made the point of the car's not meeting your needs. And then the car doesn't get you excited. This is dumb. You should have just kept the Buick if you were going to do that, or the Oldsmobile or whatever it was.
Alero.
The Alero? Oh no.
You've got a car, got a car you don't love, and you've got a car that doesn't meet your needs. You should have kept the Alero.
The three is a
right.
It's just as better than walking, but at least it's a manual. At least he likes it.
Right. And it's so just, I mean, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I'm now having listened to those two. Why are you even looking at those cars? Now, for people that own them and love them, they're great cars, but Chris hit it.
There's nothing wrong with a Focus ST. It's a good car.
Great.
It's absolutely a good car.
If it doesn't quicken your pulse at the point you are in life, if it doesn't quicken your pulse, no. Now, regardless of what you choose, keep the Mazda, because you are in a position where when that Mazda blows up, you don't have to have a car tomorrow.
That's true.
You can afford to drag your feet. So drive that Mazda until it can't pass.
The problem is that he doesn't have room for 85 cars.
Well, no, he's saying just keep the Mazda first.
No, just don't shop.
In general.
Right. And then keep saving the money that you're going to put down on this next car. But
or keep looking. That's what we did. It took us a year to get all of our cars.
That's my next thing. That's my next thing is absolutely no. Do not buy the Focus ST, because look at the look on your face right now. That's not someone who's excited about a new car. You're more excited about driving your Mazda than you are driving this car that you're about to pay.
No, Jeff just wants some
under $20,000 for it.
So I'll tell you why
you need to start looking at something different. And Chris's point about buying something stupid and fun like a Mustang GT or something like that, absolutely go and a year later, and I'm sure everyone who listens to the show is sick of me talking about how much I love this. Even today, I'm like, I'm late. I got to get back from work. I get it in the podcast. This car is so much fun. And if you can't find a car that makes you giggle, no, because whatever car you buy should be giggle worthy. You have the truck. It's logical. You have the completely economical, paid for, into the dirt Mazda 3. So whatever you purchase that you're going to have to write a check for every month, or one great big large check for, you still have a Corvette.
It's not his Corvette.
I can't really do anything with the Corvette.
Doesn't matter.
No, but it's saying it's just not your Corvette. It's your wife's Corvette.
Doesn't matter. Whatever car you buy next, if it doesn't make you giggle 6 months after you buy it, you bought the wrong car.
Well, I will now go around and tell you why you're all right and you're all wrong.
Okay.
Chris is slightly wrong. I am kind of excited by an ST because I do want something faster. But what am I settling for? The only reason I'm buying it now is because they're getting older and older, and there's nothing on the new market that I like that I can touch. My passion, if the lottery struck today and the stars aligned, I would have a Veloster N. But I just looked, and there are 3 available in all of America, and they want $5,000 to $7,000 over sticker, and I refuse to pay that.
Wait for it though. It's always.
I could absolutely wait.
It's a Hyundai. No. They're going to come down.
That's why Chris is right, and that's why Chris is wrong, because I'm kind of excited by the ST.
Okay.
Here's why Chrissy is right and wrong. She's sort of right that I want to make sure the hatch is too big, but this is why the Civic Si is off the list and a lot of the WRX.
Why I didn't get it.
Because if the WRX wagon existed, again, if the freaking automobile establishment would just sell what I want, which is a WRX wagon or a Veloster N, you're right. They would absolutely trump the Focus ST. So you're both right. I'm settling. Now, here's why Chris is also intriguing is I never really gave both of Mental and Chris are right. You're right. I probably don't need front wheel drive. So why aren't I looking at something with a 5-speed and a rear-wheel drive,
Giggle-worthy,
and 350 horsepower that I can light it up in front of the Dairy Queen anytime I want to.
So tomorrow,
donuts at the Circle K,
right? Or you have many other large parking lots that are probably not filled anymore, and you could probably just go into. Go drive it tomorrow. Go have fun. Just don't sign on the dotted line.
Oh, no. I am a very patient man. The last time that I searched for the car that I wanted, it took me 7.5 months between first drive and purchase. And that is probably what I'm looking at. The Talon.
Wow. Yeah, everyone else has been a either already had it in the family or a purchase of necessity. Like, damn it, I totaled the Mazda. I need something else now.
But that's how I got the Mazda 3, because I crashed the Protege.
Right, yeah.
But that's your minimum excitement level is the Talon. If the car doesn't make you as excited as the Talon,
dude, have you met the guy? He loves Talons.
God, well, that's what I'm saying.
Dang,
and when you bought that Talon, you were all kinds of happy. And the situation you're in right now, that car should make you as happy as the Talon.
That's why the WRX or the Veloster N, because they are, in my feeling, more a better predecessor. But the focus, like I said, if Ford was still making them, I don't think I would be trying to buy one right now. Because I would walk into the dealership 6 months from now and pick my color. But every single one of them is getting more old and more beat.
Then it's not the answer. The answer may not be manufactured yet.
Try it tomorrow. See what you think.
But that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And this one is not. This one is just so I can sit in the Recaros and go, does this pinch my butt?
And I'm going to throw another one at you too, is especially with Hertz unloading a lot of theirs. If you're looking at the Mustang GTs, Camaro SS, a couple of years old, the 1LEs, woo, what a
Those
car.
are all automatic. All the Hertz ones are automatics, though. Sadly,
I must have 3 pedals.
Not all of them. Hertz rented manual cars. They also rented manual 392 Challengers.
Oh, I am not redneck enough to drive a Challenger.
No, but I'm just saying. But Hertz, they're hard to get a hold of, but they're out there. And
I'm not America enough to drive a Mopar.
You don't know, so you try.
Oh, that's the whole idea.
I'm sure they're fantastic.
Go test drive a 392 Charger.
I could see myself in a Mustang. I could not see myself in a Charger.
Go test drive a 392 Charger. I think you'll have some fun.
This has all been intriguing.
All right, we should probably move on to what is the next show.
Intrigue me again. Do we know what we're doing next week?
No, not idea. Listeners, if you've got any ideas, go and throw it. We do have Ike from the Untitled Car Show. He's wanting to get on the show. We're trying to work out schedules. Gentleman Dave's on our docket coming in February. As soon as we can get our Kim and our Kathy schedules lined up. But if you've got an idea and that idea is not, you should have me on the show, go ahead and let us know. You got all of our social medias, all our contacts. Text me as long as it's not too early in the morning. We'll have something by next Wednesday. We'll probably figure it out about 7:30.
Awesome.
It might be about the Mandalorian if you guys haven't watched it yet.
Not Garage Heroes. We're not doing Star Wars.
We're not doing that.
I have spoken. We're not doing it.
And with that note, on Chris, the most unlikely person on the podcast to throw out a Star Wars reference, we're going to say thanks for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. We also hope you'll join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe. It is totally free. Then go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm sorry you have to look at this, but you could tell us all about it down there in the dude. Okay, but you can look at Mental. So look at Mental Square, not at Jeff Square or Chrissy Square. That's fine too. Chris, meh, we're in the middle there. Maybe if you pick us up the cat, we'll have something to look. Anyway, tell us in the doodly do what you think, and then push the button right over my bald head here and subscribe. If you have any questions or show ideas, drop a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers, or email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. Text Mental, because he's the only one who will listen. 484-243-0455. Actually, I do see the text too these days, and that dog is so cute. I am in love. Find us on Instagram or Twitter at everyone.racers. Thanks again, and until next week, keep the shiny side up. Unless there is no shiny side like Jeff's Mazda, then just keep those wheels down.